We are live, all the way live.
I never didn't believe in Bigfoot. I never believed in it, I didn't believe in it. I never gave it any thought.
They kept wood knocking back and forth to each other, and it was in a pattern.
Barn owls don't typically throw rocks.
I come across these tracks.
Sasquatch is still not on my mind.
Why, hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Caffeinated Cryptid podcast, home to caffeinated fueled conversations, combining credible scientific perspectives, paranormal research, with captivating stories of eyewitnesses that have experienced high strangeness firsthand. I'm not reading this at all. I'm your host, Bobby Dizzle, the MC of this train wreck, and we got a few people in the chat. I've heard tons of stories, scientific, accounts, and I'm ready to hear it tonight. We have, Dr. Scott Taylor, extraordinary guest doing his personal experience, academic expertise, and a passion for education to unlock the mysteries of near-death experiences and share-death experiences. The second one, I want to dive into that later. But Scott, how's it going, Dr. Taylor?
Well, hey, Bobby, I am so glad to be on your show this evening. Thank you for the invitation. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
So a little backstory. When I saw that you were an NDE, near-death experiencer, a guest expertise, subject matter expert, I kind of jumped on it because whenever you have a cryptid witness, a paranormal witness, people that get abducted by UFOs regularly, I always ask them, have you ever had a near-death experience? And it's like 70% majority. And so I'm like, I want to have him on and ask, because you seem to know the ins and outs of how it may or may not work. Why do you think that people that have these sort of quasi-traumatizing experiences all share the same experience, such as a near-death experience or like even a really traumatic brain injury?
That's a great question.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. It's consistent too.
Yeah. In fact, at the last International Association for Near-Death Studies, there was a whole kind of a track that they did about near-death experiences and how that relates to aliens and alien abductions and the ability to see them and that sort of thing. And if I can summarize that research, it seems to come down to the fact that when we leave our physical bodies to have a near-death experience, what happens is that we lose our filters, those filters that we agreed to have when we came into the non-physical universe. And those are just ripped away. And it's in that space of expanded awareness that aliens reside in. And it's their, method of communication, that whole idea, they communicate telepathically. Well, so do people who have near-death experiences. So they're in that, both parties, aliens and near-death experiencers are in that same vibratory state. So it would just make sense that, aliens come along, they say, who should we talk to tonight? Oh, well, there's Fred down there. He's all ready to go. So let's pick him. It's easy. They don't want to make it any harder either.
I kind of wonder if they're looking for someone to, to mess with it. If the people that have that vibration don't have a beacon going out just a little bit stronger, like, oh, there's one right there, ready to go.
That's right.
So you're saying it's kind of like a soul contract that we agreed upon before we came in here, that we can't, how like a little kid knows about his past life, but when he hits like 5 years old, it's all gone. So it kind of reopens that pathway a little bit.
Yep. And I think that's interesting that you call it a beacon. I think that's true. That
Mhm.
if you have the ability to scan the universe, um, you can pick up on people who have that ability. There's all kinds of research out there about people who get into, say, a taxi cab, and the taxi cab driver turns around and says, when did you have your near-death experience? Well, that all comes from the idea that, that there's a vibration that we put off, that there's, that we just exude this energy that says we've had the same experience as you've had. So I'm on board with that kind of
Mhm.
idea that we have changed in a physical way, that we are now putting off a whole different uh, energy, a whole different vibration than we did prior to, say, a near death or shared death experience.
You often hear people that talk to spirits a lot, how when people in the afterlife, other dimension, know that they have like they're hooks in someone, they won't leave them alone. It's almost like they just keep knocking on the door, like, you got to stop, like, I'm trying to sleep, and you got to not be in my mirror.
Yep.
So,
Oh, that's really interesting, because, one of the best mediums on the planet is a woman by the name of Suzanne Giesman.
Mhm.
And she has this wonderful story that she tells where, she tried for a year of meditating to try to touch base with her stepdaughter, who had passed away in a really unfortunate accident. And once she figured out how to do it, it was like she just opened the door to all of the dead folks who wanted to come through
Mhm.
and have a chit chat. And it was her mentor that said, "You know what you need? You need Boris." And it turns out that there are guides who act as gatekeepers, and
Mhm.
that is their job. And so Suzanne, hired Boris, I'm doing that with air quotes, to say, okay, I need you to, line up the right people and have them only come in when I'm, doing my thing, and not during the shower, not driving, not when I'm sleeping. You have to keep them out. And so Suzanne and Boris, worked together over months to come up with a system that really worked for her. And so if any of your audience is having that trouble, um, ask for a guide like Boris, who can be a gatekeeper, that you can,
Mhm.
create some sort of arrangement saying, okay, when I go into this meditative state and I say these words, that means, you can open them up. And by the way, Boris, I really want you to line them up in the correct order. I just don't want any mishmash out there.
Mhm.
If I want to talk to Uncle Fred, he's first in line. And then, there's Aunt Betty, and then there's Jane. And then, so, Boris can really be really helpful in that way.
So Boris is on the other side, just so we're clear. He's a spirit guide.
He's a spirit
Okay.
guide.
Making
Yeah.
sure he wasn't in the yellow pages or anything. Like, call
Ooh,
Boris.
good clarification, Bobby. Thank you.
I'm like, I can just picture the guide to the recently deceased, like in the front of it's like an ad for Boris. So let's talk about your near death experience. Is it the same as your shared death experience, or are there two separate?
So I
Occurrences?
had two shared death experiences. One with my girlfriend, when she and her son passed, and one with my dad, who passed in about a year ago. So, where would you like me to start?
Now let's start with your dad, because it's the most recent one.
Sure. So, my dad's in a nursing home,
Mhm.
and my mom calls to say, Dad's really on the edge, and Scott, I know that you're into this death stuff, so can you make sure that Dad's going to have an easy transition? So I said, sure, be glad to. And so I went into my meditative state that, allows me to connect with my dad long distance. And one of the things I should say to your audience is that, when we enter into expanded states of awareness, it's outside of time and space. So literally, I can be with my dad in a nursing home 1,100 miles away, and I can roll the clock backward and forward to, get at that time. Well, as it turns out, I land in his room just as he's making his last breath. And there's this light from the corner of the room that just fills the room up. It's brilliant, it's white, it's loving, it's really quite extraordinary. Dad lifts out of his body, and when he does that, his sister, who passed about 10 years before, steps into the light right in front of him, and she's presenting herself at about 10 years old. And she's just, her fists are going back and forth. She's just so excited to see her brother again. And Dad lifts up out of his body. He acknowledges Jean, that she's there, and then off to the sides come in his parents, my grandparents, with Grandpa Brett on one side and Grandma Harriet on the other side. And then as I look, behind them are the generations. I'd never seen that before, but, there's Grandpa Brett, and behind him is his father, Wilbur, and behind him is his father and his father. So there's, this off into the distance, all of this lineage that exists for both the male and the female side. And then two beings come, and there's a big one and a little one, and they're just globes of this beautiful rainbow light. And they come up to my dad, and they take his hand and they walk him into the light. And so he's walking now past Jean, past Grandma and Grandpa. And as they walk further into the light, they kind of just, move around behind him, following him into the light. Well, I just get into the parade, and he moves in. And at this point, I need to pause and say, one of my father's passions in life was duck hunting. And so as he's moving into the light, what I'm noticing is we're moving up this slight incline. And when we get to the top of this little incline, I'm looking out, and there is a duck slough that's got the cattails, that the big ones, that are, 8-10 feet tall. And pushed into the cattails, there's a dock. And my Uncle Ed is standing there on the dock, and he's all dressed in his gear. He's got the waders on, and he's got the duck hunting coat and the, and the duck call. He's got a duck bill, a pole. And he says to my dad, "Brett, we've got all the gear. It's time for you to come hunting with me." So Uncle Ed gets in a boat, and he floats out into the slough. Dad gets a boat, and as he's entering into the boat, there's all the dogs that Dad has trained over the years. So there's like 6 of them, and they're labs and chocolate labs and golden retrievers. He's had several different kinds, but they're all there, and they're all jumping in the boat with him. And of course, his boat's tipping back and forth. And so Dad pulls out, he sees a muskrat house off to the side, pulls up, tells the dogs to get out of the boat and wait there on the muskrat house. And he moves in, sets his boat up in these weeds, tosses out the decoys. And just about then, the sun starts to set. And as those rays of light become really long, for those of you in the duck hunting world, this is like the perfect time because they're coming in off the fields and they're going to rest. They're going to come in and sit on the water and rest for the night. Well, it's a perfect time to go hunting as these ducks are coming in. And so he's standing there in the boat. He tests his duck call. He gets his gun ready to go. And he's kind of just standing there marveling at the beauty of the sunset. And then the birds start coming in. And usually when that happens, it's just, a flock of 4 or 5, maybe even a dozen, but that's about it. This time, the sky is filled with thousands and thousands of ducks that are flying really close to each other. And as the sun rays hit their wings, on most ducks, the wing feathers are iridescent. And so the sky is just this explosion of color and sound because they're all quacking away. Quack, 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 quack. And then a voice comes that says, "To a hunter, come home." And and so Dad's standing there in the boat, and he's so transfixed that he doesn't even raise his gun. I mean, he's just looking at this wondrous scene of nature that you wouldn't see in normal life. And as he's doing that, and I can feel him, just open up to this glory that God has put before him. He now leaves that body. So he left his physical body, went on this hunting trip, and then he left that body again. So his non-physical body, he left that and ascended up into above the earth, into the blackness of space, where he was reunited with all that there is, the source of everything. And as somebody who was having a shared death experience, what that means is that I got to be with him in all those stages, and I've got to feel what he was feeling and see what he was seeing and understand what was happening to him as it was progressing in each one of these stages. And then once he entered into that space of unity with all, then I came back to my physical body. And, have fun, Dad. So it was, it was totally unexpected. I didn't expect to have that kind of an experience, but knowing him, it would have been exactly what he wanted to do. He wanted to see his family. He wanted to see, to participate in something that he loved so much. And then to be reunited with that loving consciousness that is everything, that is everything. So there you go, Bobby.
Wow. So do you think this is a weird not a weird, but can he come back to that reality with his family and the little slough and everything anytime he wants, or is that just like a consolation prize?
Oh no. My understanding of it is that it's like a transition period. so that he leaves his physical body, enters into the non-physical world where he's greeted by loved ones, both his family and my mom's family. I mean, they were all there. And so that's like the welcoming committee. It says you're in the right place, and then, he's guided by these two light beings to go to Uncle Ed, who's waiting for him. And he gets to have an extraordinary experience that you could never have in the physical world, but close, because those reeds were real, and anybody who's been on a duck slough knows that there's a smell that goes with, hanging out, and the sound of the wind and and anyway, so it's as if he now has made the transition into the non-physical world. He is open to that, and he is grounded in this new vibration. He's no longer in the physical world. He's there having a duck hunting experience, and then it morphs again, and he gets to move on and have a higher experience. And in my conversation with people who've had shared death or near death experiences, that you can spend a long time with your friends and relatives. It depends on how you come out of the physical world. There are people who've had significant injuries or illnesses, and it just takes them a little while to realize that those physical ailments don't count anymore. They aren't real in the non-physical world, that you can drop them. You don't have to have tuberculosis or cancer. You get to have your leg back if it was amputated, all of those. So you spend a little more time in that space where you need to, so that you can move on to a spot that is appropriate for you in your stage of development right now.
Yeah, so it could take anywhere from just what we would think be a day or two to like a few weeks or months.
Years even. Yeah, okay. So I have another story.
All right. I'm
talking to this near-death experiencer, and he's telling me that his concept of heaven was that when he leaves his physical body, he's going to go up and sing with the heavenly choir, that he's going to stand there in the crowd of angels and other beings, and he's going to have a white robe on, and he's got the belt and the Birkenstocks and whatever, and he's going to sing hymns that he's learned by going to church all those years, and that would be the epitome of this life ever after. And then he said, you know what? After you've sung Onward Christian Soldiers 4,972 times, that next one, you just don't need it anymore. And then he said that was it. The second that he thought to himself, what else is there? The door opened up, and then he could move on to what else is there, that he'd spent his time with the choir. He was grateful for that, but just one more time of that same song. No. What else is there? So, it depends on what you want to have happen and how that influences the time that you spend there.
That makes sense, because I was thinking it sounds amazing to hunt for eternity, but eternity is a long time.
It's a long time.
I love the outdoors too, and I'm a hunter, and I was just like, that sounds great for a little while, but here we are.
Here we are, and every time I pull up a gun, I drop 3 ducks. After a couple of weeks of not missing, you go, well, really?
I think I would spend my first couple of weeks just eating the hell out of everything. I would just be like I would look like just Jabba the Hutt, but not gaining any weight. I mean, that's to me, I can have all the cigarettes I want. What are we talking?
Yeah, yeah. And then
That's
after a
why
while, you go, "Oh, okay, did that. Now what?"
I'm kind of looking forward to the big Q&A. Who shot Kennedy? Is a Bigfoot real? Like, what's on the moon? Did we go to the moon? But that's going to be like surface level stuff that I think enters your mind just from being on that other side. Like, you don't have to ask it.
Yep. Oh, so for your listeners, when we enter into the non-physical universe, we are accompanied by our guide. That guide who has been with us forever and ever, amen, across lifetimes. And that guide is tremendously useful for getting those Q&As out of the way.
Yeah, I bet that's
like, go, is the moon hollow? No. Is the who shot Kennedy? Well, ABC. And they can. And the nice thing is, you don't even need to think. It's the second you are thinking the question, they're answering it. It's just so fast, and there's no misunderstanding. It's done through telepathy, so the nuance of what you're trying to get to is there. So they actually answer the question that you're interested in. It's one of those where you go, thank God it doesn't happen in English, because you get when you have you're curious about something, it's the curiosity that gets transmitted. It's not the words themselves. It can be if that's important, but think of how much more if say your mother had passed away before you, and she shows up and says, I love you. Well, we have an understanding of what that means with spoken words, but think of all of the other meanings that could be encapsulated with something that was committed or transmitted telepathically. It'd be all about those experiences you had in the past, the hopes and the fears, and the future that didn't happen because of the car accident, or it's quite extraordinary what can be communicated in the non-physical realms. And so when people come and they talk about their experiences, I always give them a great big berth for what it is they're trying to convey, because words have, they put boundaries on concepts, but in the non-physical world, there aren't any boundaries on the concept. You get the true multidimensional meaning, and it's quite wonderful. So look forward to that one, Bobby.
Yeah, just that you feel everything at once instead of just hearing just like 3 words.
Yeah, right.
Feel in your chest. Now, is did you have a near-death experience yourself?
I had a shared death experience myself. That happened way back in 1981. That was with my girlfriend and her son, and then I had a second one, and that opened me up to trying to figure out what happened. And then the only research that was available on near-death experiences. So I studied that. I did my doctoral research in it. I've been involved with the International Association for Near-Death Studies for 30-some years. Been on their board, yada, yada. So I made a really big, deep dive into near-death experiences as a way to understand what had happened to me. And it's only been recently, like in the last 2 years, that significant scientific research has come out on shared death experiences. And they are virtually identical, except for a couple of things. In in a near-death experience, some people, a small minority, have what's known as a less than positive experience, an LTP,
Less than-
acronyms for everything.
It's less than
But
positive.
sometimes what happens is they'll go in, they'll leave their physical bodies, and they'll go into a space, and that space won't be flowers and birds and singing.
Mhm.
There's a lesson that needs to be learned. That's one of the reasons people have them. It's like their guide taking a 2x4 and just whack alongside the head, going, "Hey, you signed up for this mission here on Earth, and you are messing it up." And they got the whole finger shake thing, and they're saying, "Listen, if you want to get done what you want to get done, you got to straighten up, fly right, buddy." And so you get to figure
Mhm.
that out.
Well, that's the one where they send them back, and everybody has like a life changing. Start going nuts.
Yeah, they start going nuts and they go, "Oops, I am behind my time. I got to get moving." So anyway, that really doesn't happen in a shared death experience.
Hmm.
Near-death experiences are designed for you to have one and then come back. Everybody knows that you're coming back, so they design the experience exactly for what you need right then. In shared death experiences, people are actually having their last transition. They are leaving their
Okay.
body for the
Okay.
last time. I mean, Dad was not coming back. He died of COVID, actually. And his body had been ravaged by the disease. And so this is the real thing. And we are witness. We get to go along in a shared death experience. We get to witness what that is like. And the research shows that 100%, the study was 900 people, which is huge. 100%,
Mhm.
every single person went to a benevolent afterlife, period, full stop. And so, when you read that kind of thing,
Mhm.
you go, "Oh, that makes so much sense." And it's really quite comforting, the fact that we're going to go to a place where we get to reunite once again with that
Mhm.
loving consciousness that we came out of in order to enter into the physical world.
I'm glad you explained what that was, because when I was reading, your bio, I was like, oh, shared death experience sounds a lot like mass suicide, but that can't be what he's talking about. So what does this mean? So I'm glad you cleared that up perfectly. So what you're saying is, just to get that off the table, shared death experience. I'm like, what is the difference? Like, that sounds okay. I know it couldn't be that, so I'm like, I gotta ask. So you're saying in these tests, that everybody went to a good place. Everybody
Who's making their final transition went to a good place. And about half the people are bedside, like I was. With Mary Fran and Nolan, I was bedside with Nolan. And as Nolan left his physical body for the last time, I went with Nolan into the light.
Mhm.
And the same way with my dad. I went with Dad into that light that was projected into the room. So sometimes it's a full experience like mine. I got to know what he was thinking. I know what he was feeling, knowing what he was experiencing. It's like I had merged with my dad and got to experience that the whole time. Some people, it's not like that. They're like observers, and they just kind of watch what's happening, and they're not emotionally
Mhm.
involved. It's whatever's appropriate at the moment. I'm very glad that Dad decided to share that with me. I think that
Yeah,
was quite the invitation.
that's got to offer a whole lot of peace on your part and your mom's, your
Yes,
family's.
yes, exactly. And it's very consistent with who he was. So,
Mhm.
the story just seems to make sense. I mean, everybody who's heard it has gone, oh, well, yeah, of course, that's Brett. That's what he'd want his transition to look like. Of course. Yeah. And then,
Yep.
and it makes everybody feel really like, yeah, good for him. It's like
Somebody's like that lucky.
he was 94 years old. He had a fabulous run.
94. Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, and he would have lived longer if he, COVID hadn't happened. But
Hmm.
in any case, that is one heck of a run as a human being. Think of all the changes that you've seen.
94. And that was just, how long ago was that?
That was a year ago, October.
So he was like turn of the century.
Yeah, that's right.
Man saw horse and buggies and lift off to the moon.
Mm-hmm.
Was he a veteran of World War II or anything?
He was too young for World War II. He tried to sign up for Korea. It was 4F because of his knees and his feet, and it was so. No, he didn't. He didn't do active service. Tried though.
I was going to say there's like a whole generation of people who everybody was a serviceman.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just what you did.
Yeah, he probably got lucky not having to go to Korea. That was a shit show.
Oh
but,
yeah.
But I digress. So when it comes to these NDEs, that's not what I was going to ask. Is there any things that comes up with like what the deity is, who the deity is? Is there heaven or hell? I know you said everybody went to a good benevolent place. So
Yeah.
I kind of answered that one.
Yeah. So at least the concept of it that I've been able to ascertain is that, there is this loving consciousness that is the universe, and that human beings, our consciousness it comes out of that. It's like a small differentiated bit of consciousness that goes out, lives in duality for a while, and then returns. The concept of hell is an interesting one, but mostly where it comes up is in the life review. We each get a chance to have a life review where we get to relive our life here in the physical world, but with a significant difference. We get to relive it from three perspectives. We get to relive it as ourselves with all the thoughts, words, feelings, sensations, boom. But we also get to relive it as the other person in the scene. So like right now, when I'm having my life review, Bobby, I get to be you. And I get to know what you're thinking and how this interview is going and what your thoughts are about, this conversation we are having. So it's the other person in the scene. You get to know everything about them too. And third is that you get to know it from an omniscient point of view. So God's perspective, if you will. So you can see how the interaction between the two of us plays out in your life and in my life, and then to our friends, to our community, to all the people who listen to this podcast, and how that gets to be affected. And so
that's a lot of data.
That's a lot of data. So you get to see the consequences of your actions, and not only see them, but feel them, taste them, hear them. You get to live them. And some people would say that is hell. That, sometimes people live in a space that isn't healthy. Okay, pause. There are special divine beings who accompany us on our life review. And It can be our regular guide, or it can be someone who's brought in especially for that particular event. And they tend to have one question that they ask us. What did you learn? Because it's never about judging. You know what I mean? You're not judged by a tribunal or, people sitting up on some high seats who are looking, with scornful faces down on you. You don't have to prove anything. You came here, you lived here in dual into this physical world with all of the limitations that come from being in this space. And, most of us just do the best we can. Sometimes we make right decisions. Sometimes we make wrong decisions. Sometimes you really never know if it's right or wrong until many years in the future. Point is, there's this divine being who whispers in your ear and goes, what did you learn? That's because that's the point of being here, is what did you learn? What did you learn? What did you learn? And it's an amazing exercise in how to be present and realizing that we came with a mission to do some things. Because let's face it, sometimes in our life, we have to be a particularly good jerk in order for somebody else to get their lesson. Like what has happened to us sometimes. We're in a store and somebody's a jerk, and you figured out how to do a little verbal aikido to make that situation turn out okay, or you didn't. All right. So this is the last thing on that.
All right.
This is worth the price of admission for all of the people who are watching this particular podcast. It goes like this. So you're reliving a scene in your life and you've decided, oh man, I wish I hadn't done it that way. I wish I would have said this or acted in this way instead of the way I did. You can turn to your guide and say, can I have a do-over? And they will, just like a film, they'll stop the film and go, okay, let's roll it back. And now you live it the way that you want. And let's see what the implications are to yourself, to your family, to your community, nation, see what's the ripple effect if you behave differently. And so you do. And maybe it worked out, or maybe you go, ooh, I could do that better. And you do it a third time, a fourth time, a fifth time, until you really get a sense of, oh, I've learned so much. Here's the cool part. Each one of those timelines, each one of those scenes that you redid become part of our human experience, become part of us. So that it's not wasted. It's not like it's just made up stuff. It actually is real, and you don't have to relive another whole life with all of its karma, yada, yada. You can just do it right then. Have your guide go, yeah, let's play that again. How are you going to do it this time, Scott? Well, X, Y, and Z. And all of a sudden you begin to grow. During that life review, you get to grow as a human being. And that means that all of us, because we're all connected, in terms of there's one big human experience that we all feed into. So you get to feed into it and add more data, and you get to grow. We all get to grow. So take advantage of your guide. It just means you have to be curious about alternatives.
That almost explains like parallel universes a little bit.
Oh yeah, multiverse, that whole thing.
Almost. Now, what was I going to ask? Almost on the same line of that. If something happened in like, say you had like a high school girlfriend and she broke up with you, and you're like, well, I wonder what would happen if we ever got married. Could you get to look at that? Like see like Ghost of Christmas Past, Christmas Future? Kind of like, oh man, I'm glad that didn't happen. Woo, dodged a bullet.
Well, sure. If like You know,
I
if
got a
I
couple of
hadn't been a
those.
jerk and I'd been a decent guy, she wouldn't have broken
Mhm.
up with me. You
Or
know,
see what would happen,
how
you
would
know?
that have played out?
Got some mean ass kids. Oh man, I'm glad I dodged that one. Woo! She was, and her parents were insane. It
I'm
was,
so glad I ducked that bullet. Thank
yeah.
you, guides, for showing me
That's
that.
one of those things you notice is like when something happens like 10 years later, like, man, that was a blessing in disguise.
Yep. Yeah. You get to take a look at that if you want.
So yeah, I was noticing some of Michelle's talking points here, and one of them struck my tickle my fancy, so to speak. Well, I can't talk today, but what is the brain activity with the NDEs? And is the light something we see inside our brain, or is that when we move out of our physical body? Like, it's always been curious to me from watching all the documentaries.
Sure. So, in a classic near-death experience, the physical body dies. You know, so that means the EEG. You know, we just flatline. The heart
Mhm,
flatlines, the brain waves flatlines. There's nothing. There's nothing left.
mhm,
And what happens is that then, of course, our consciousness, which has been stored in our physical body, leaves the physical body and goes out and, you know, has some sort of an adventure. And then, you know, those wondrous EMTs or whomever, you know, put the paddles on you, boom, and reanimate the body. Once that happens, you know, in comes our consciousness. So the point about that is that our consciousness is not a product of our physical brain.
mhm,
It, my understanding of it today is that the brain is this magnificent translating organ. So it takes this non-physical consciousness and says, okay, I want to, you know, wave my right hand. And so that command goes from consciousness to the physical brain, and then the
mhm,
physical brain goes da 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 da, you know, allows me to
mhm,
make that determination. So yeah, so it's the idea that we don't have a consciousness that is derived by the physical brain. It is it's stored here. You know, our non-physical consciousness is stored,
mhm,
and of course that, excuse me, that means that you can do all kinds of things. Remote viewing comes out of that,
mhm.
right? We just take and say, well, consciousness, go over to Bosco and see what, you know.
That's so interesting too, because that stuff's real. Remote viewing
It's
is so real.
real. Yep, absolutely. And that's what mediumship is all about. And when we do, you know, deep states of consciousness and,
Mhm,
you know, we're able to, um, you know, commune with nature. I mean, all of that says that our consciousness has remarkable abilities. And what we have to do as human beings is to reduce the filters that we
mhm.
put on ourselves in order to survive here in the physical world. Because if we were connected to everything, everywhere, every when here in the physical world, we couldn't function. It's just too much
Yeah,
data. And
be like
so
sitting by a speaker at a concert, just
yeah, it's just too much. So we have to be able to go, oh, I can focus to see if there's a snake in
mhm,
the grass, a tiger in the tree, whatever. And then, you know, we can do what we need to do here in the physical world in order to fulfill our desires, our mission.
mhm. I've been huge on manifestation and angel numbers in the last 10 years or so.
Oh yeah,
And when you put a little effort into that, you see some crazy things happen. Just
absolutely. Yeah.
it's incredible.
So, you know, manifestation is really all about the belief that there is no time,
Mhm,
you know, that we can take and put our intent into this loving consciousness that is the universe, and that intent will bring forth whatever it is that we want. I mean, that's where spoon bending comes from.
mhm,
You know, it's like I'm going to merge with this spoon, and I'd like that spoon to be soft like Jello. And, are you agreeable with that spoon? Yada, yada. And then twist. And so it's like that. It's this idea that thoughts are things, that thoughts are just ways that we can manipulate consciousness so that it can manifest what it is that we want. So then what it really means is that we have to be really careful about what we think.
Have you ever explored out the gateway process? Yeah, sorry.
I'm sorry, Bobby, say again.
Have you? So I was thinking outside my head there. What is it's called the gateway process, CIA, about the
Oh,
particles?
yeah. I taught that class for 30 years. I know it really well.
I read that. That thing freaked me out because it says, because I didn't know whenever I was exploring angel numbers and manifestation or whatever, I didn't realize I was figuring stuff out that was true. Like I was just like taking mental notes. Like, okay, when this happens, this happens. When shit hits the fan, hang on because it means something good's happening. And I read the gateway process. And I'm like, holy shit, man, that's the same stuff.
It's the same
This is
stuff.
all.
Yeah.
And the end of the manifestation chapter says if you try to make it happen too fast, it could be catastrophic. So you want it to happen at a certain little pace to let things happen. I was like, well, that makes sense because whenever something happens drastically.
So for your audience, the gateway process was developed by the Monroe Institute. Bob Monroe was the first person to write a popular book about out-of-body experiences. And Bob, there was so much interest in what he had discovered in the out-of-body states that he developed a process that allows people to do what he did. And you can take that, you can read about it online, but you can take that class through the Monroe Institute, either online or in person. It's just as effective either way, and it always works. It's remarkable what Bob did when he designed this thing. It's a wonderful introduction to states of expanded awareness or non-ordinary states of reality. You can make up your term, but it's easy to learn. It's safe. It's always works. And it teaches you enough skills that you can jump off and learn all kinds of other things that are either taught at the Institute or by me or by other people. He used binaural beat technology in order to help people enter into and hold expanded states of awareness. The product he developed is called Hemi-Sync, which is available at Hemi-Sync.com. And a variant of it is also available at monroeinstitute.org. So I am just in love with the whole thing. I think it's an extraordinary way to wake up to the capabilities that we have that we are just sitting there dormant.
Yeah, I know. I was freaking out when I was reading it. And I was like, this stuff is all just real. And for those listening, anybody that listens in the future, I did a mini documentary on it. And if you look in my playlist of my YouTube channel, it's under the it's manifestation, I think. But yeah, I did a little 5-minute one. Scott, we've reached the end of our official portion here.
Oh my gosh, we have. Man, that happened fast.
If you don't mind, I'm going to put you on mute and go to the restroom real quick because I want like 5-10 more minutes max, but I kind of want to talk a little bit. So stand by, everyone. Okay. I'll edit this out. I'll edit this out of the official one, so it's not going to affect the actual podcast. Sorry about that. That had to happen. I drink a lot of coffee, people. I mean, a lot. That's how
I get
get so-
that. Otherwise, you wouldn't have that name on your podcast.
That's how I get so talkative. Otherwise, I'm just an introvert. So, David had a question. He said, not a loaded question, but do you believe in God? Just curious. I think you answered that a time or two.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I thought I saw that. I mean, you said 10 seconds later, you said, that's how God's plans on David. Okay, I think it answered that one. But yeah, it's that NDE thing makes you wonder if dreams aren't somehow connected to it sometimes, to exploring your way outside your body a little bit.
Yes, and there's several different kinds of dreams, and so you can read up on them. But there's a particular type called lucid dreaming, where you are aware that you are dreaming, and you can step into the dream. That is particularly good for out of body experiences, for stepping into NDE like states. So when they happen to you, treat them specially and use them because it's a portal to expanded states of awareness.
Yeah, it's whenever you start feeling when you're in a dream, it doesn't happen to me often, and you start being aware. And you're just like, is this real? Like I'm in here. And usually to me, it happens when I'm having a bad dream. Like something I don't like's happening. I'll kind of wake up just a smidge and realize it is a dream and pull myself out. I've never actually done the whole I'm in a video game and I can control things dream before. I don't have that kind of control. I'm just like, oh God, this is scary. Get out. Abort.
Well, next time you might want to try playing a video game on that one.
I know.
And just saying, okay, so I got this big ugly monster chasing me. What happens if I turn around and, tell off the monster? Like, what do you want?
Doing that dream running where you can't do anything. Just...
Oh, yeah. You're, wading through deep waters. Yeah. Taffy. Mm-hmm.
John dreamed he was investigating with David Pilates. That would have been fun. That guy's I've tried the out of body experience strategy where you try to right before you go to sleep.
Yeah. You
try to make yourself, and I've gotten to the part where you start vibrating, and that was happening for real. And I yanked myself out of it because it scared me a little.
It does scare you a little bit, and then then when you're awake, you can check yourself and go, I did it. I did what I was supposed to do. And in Bob's first book, he did that for quite a while, where he would lie down, take a nap, and then these vibrations would happen. And finally, I'm cleaning this up a little bit, but essentially what happened was he said, nuts. What happens if I just go with this instead of fighting it or trying to get out of it? And that's when his whole world changed, and he started having out of body experiences that he could control.
Have you done it before?
Yes.
Went past the vibrations and had an actual astral projection or whatever they call it.
Yes. And for me, that whole vibratory thing was not much and very short. Some people have big vibrations. It just kind of depends on individual experience. But yes.
Mine felt like airplane turbulence for like 5 seconds. And I yanked out of us. Oh my gosh, I did it. But I've never been able to do it since. It happened one good time when I was trying it.
Yep. Well, you can ask for it.
Yeah. I bet now that I'm more open to it, I bet I could make it happen again now. That's kind of scary.
Yep.
That's crazy. Well, yeah, this has been a fun conversation. I appreciate you coming on, and thanks to Michelle for hooking us up. She hasn't failed me once.
Remarkable woman.
Yeah.
So thank you, Bobby. I have enjoyed this, and look at that. It's exactly on the top of the hour.
Yeah, I got a good chat tonight too. I'm glad to see everybody in the chat there. Everybody share and subscribe and whatever and what have you, as they say. I've got some. I'm taking my older classic episodes that have gotten more organic views and re-editing them down to a more listener-friendly podcast, and I'm going to start putting those out a little bit. Instead of doing these, I'll put those out because they'll be more entertaining than when I first did them anyway. And it's been a couple of years, so people have forgotten. That's my next project. And then season 2 of the Caffeinated Cryptid is going to be more drawn down, meatier, content rich episodes and less of the conversation, because I'll edit them out. I'll still have these kind of conversations, but I'll be edited way down.
Yep. I did the same thing. I had season 1, and then I told Michelle it happened when my dad was sick.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I just need to take a break. I did, and then came back, and I had not entirely, but a different lens. I was looking at the same material through, and I think it helped expand the podcast and help people understand. Yep. I was really kind of honing in on after effects, and how do you bring those after effects here into the physical world to have them help you. And I think it's the first time I've seen it anywhere. I did an interview with a family member. It was a sister. Her brother had been a cocaine addict for 25 years. Can you believe that? He overdosed, had a near-death experience, and the conversation was about how did his addiction affect their relationship, and then when he was totally transformed as a result of his NDE, how did that change things? And how long did it take her, and when did she believe? And
so he came back and straightened up.
Yes, and in his experience, he went into this dark place, and there was his body laying on a cold slab of like dark granite.
Ooh.
And what he witnessed was his addiction dying on the slab, and he was resurrected without the addiction.
That's cool. That's amazing. I always call it the ghost of Christmas future kind of thing. Ghost of Christmas past.
Yep.
Get the 3 ghosts.
Here's old Scrooge going, I didn't want to die.
No. And those weasels buried. I always picture the weasels. I don't know why the Disney version's always in my mind.
My favorite is George C. Scott when he plays Scrooge.
With the Muppets?
I have not seen the Muppet version. You're ahead of me on that one, Bobby.
No, here's the funny part about the Muppet version. The guy that plays it like he's trying to win an Academy Award alongside the Muppets. And it's the most crazy thing to watch. I couldn't imagine being like high on marijuana or something watching it, because this dude's acting his ass off, and there's just Kermit next to him. It's amazing. This guy's giving it everything. He's Anthony Hopkins level acting, and they're just like a Mickey Mouse. It's hilarious. All right, folks, we're gonna hit that outro music, and everyone have a good week. I know we got to get back to work. I don't want to say that, but thanks for watching, Scott. Thanks for coming on. I'd like to have you back someday.
I really enjoyed our conversation, and everybody out there in podcast land, thanks for tuning in.
Oh, and all of Scott's information's on the description, so it's all there. Peace, everyone.
I never didn't believe in Bigfoot. I never believed in it. I didn't believe in it. I never gave it any thought.
They kept wood knocking back and forth to each other, and it was in a pattern.
Barn owls don't typically throw rocks.
I come across these tracks.
Sasquatch is still not on my mind.